Good evening and welcome everyone to the second session of Founders Garage. And our today's theme is idea validation. Our today's speaker is Mr. Manoj Kothari, who is a design and innovation strategist with over 2 decades of experience across industries and global brands with a special interest in future studies. He leads Turian Labs, a design thinking and business innovation company which he co-founded in 2015. Prior to this, he co-founded and led a design company, Onio Design, and a digital branding company, Eternia. Welcome, sir. Over to you.
All right. Hope you can hear me. It would be nice to see everyone's faces. But even my video has been stopped, so sorry. I can't show my face to you. Maybe we can remove the video once I start anyways, but it'll be good to see faces and talk since we are not face to face, if possible. You can say hello and then close the video. It's okay.
Hello, sir.
So which year are you all guys? Maybe one can reply. Is it all third year, final year, or you already passed out? How's that?
So everyone is like we are from second, third year mostly, and some are freshmen also. Like the Founders Guide program is for everyone in the institute, undergraduates, postgraduates who want to take their product to the market. So yeah, it is basically diverse group of people.
Okay, good, got it. Okay, So anyway, I'm first of all, I guess some of you may know, I am, in case the profile has been circulated, I am from IIT Bombay as well, 92 batch pass out. And I studied industrial design after my IIT studies. So I'm also a trained designer that way. And of course, prior to running this company, which I'm running right now, the company I was running was a design studio, a product design studio, which was called Onio Design. So that's my background. And I've taken some investments and divested, and some typical rigmarole has happened before prior to this. So currently the kind of business which I run, it's an innovation consulting company, Turian Labs. And that's where you'll see some glimpses of the kind of work we do and how it aligns to the whole point of new idea validation. So in fact, I think somebody who introduced me said it's an idea generation. No, it's not idea generation session. What I was told was it's an idea validation, what I'm going to talk about. I guess you already had one session on idea generation. So I guess we've lost some time in right link and wrong link and all that settings. 15 minutes are already passed. So maybe I have probably 45 minutes to talk to you guys and have a question answer. So I don't want to make it a one-way stuff. There are a lot of images in my presentation, and better is if we can talk and then we share. Then I can share something richer based on the kind of questions which come. I don't want to make it some 40-slide presentation and there's no question in the end. That'll be too much to see. And my face, you'll see. I've kept the camera on. You can see, or maybe I can. You can see my face. It always helps not to have a face to the voice. So what I'll do is I'll show you some slides about what my company is. then let's understand where you guys are coming from. What are your primary questions when you look at the kind of background I come from, where I can help you? Some initial questions, and then I'll probably see what part of deck to be shown, and otherwise we can just have an interactive conversation. The whole idea is to make a generative conversation rather than making it one-sided. Okay, so with this, let me just share the screen. You guys can see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
One has to be my anchor, Ashish.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So the company is called Turian Labs, and we are an innovation and research strategy company, research and strategy. So there's a word called research and then strategy consulting. And for doing this research and strategy for a product or a service, we use two important methods called design thinking and futures thinking. So I'm just trying to adjust the light. There seems to be a light issue here. And the name Turian has actually Indian word called Turiya, which is in fact integrative state of being. Those of you who are interested in Indian philosophy or have taken Indian philosophy as an optional, you will read this somewhere, the 4 stages of consciousness. And that's where the integrative state of consciousness is called Turiya, Chaturya, in fact it is called. That's where the word Turiyan has come. And I was pretty mesmerized by the work Leonardo da Vinci had done. In fact, when I was studying at IIT, and I was spending more time in library doing copying the sketches of Da Vinci rather than looking up the research papers on engineering. And that's where some probably seeds were put of what I am currently doing. And that's where some of the work which we do right now is connected to it. And a very important part, somewhere it'll help you ahead, is when Vinci said, human brain cannot deliberately concentrate on 2 separate objects or ideas, no matter how dissimilar they are, without eventually forming a connection between them. And that's the entire a key to unlocking new ideas. That you first let your mind be exposed to diverse stimulus or stimuli, and naturally the mind will make some connection there. You have to rely on that power of the mind, and that's where the integrative thinking comes in picture. So Turian Labs, we work with the Fortune 500 companies right now. You can see some of the known names here. For example, Google is one of the largest clients we have right now. A lot of work we do with Google in 4 or 5 countries right now. In terms of the new apps they launch, user validation, whether is there some business can be done on that, can revenue be made on that, or will users like that experience or not, stuff like this. To some of the consumer brands we know in India like Usha or Mahindra, and I'll show you 1 or 2 case studies what kind of work has been done. Will be of use. So what kind of problems we've solved for the customers is something like the first one, where medical product, for example, leading medical product brand comes to India and says that, can you guys help us? CPAP machine, which is a ventilator for kids. Just give me a sec. Hello? Yeah. Then there is a some ed tech work we have done where a company wanted to see a product market fit for a digital learning product in languages. So they wanted to enter India and then figure out whether their existing app will work in the Indian market or some changes need to be done. There's a case study which I'm going to show about agriculture, where one client in India wanted to put a digital advisory piece on apps for farmers in India. And where can they make money in this kind of service was the work to be done. Then the fourth one was, these are some example of kind of things which we come across. A consumer appliance company, one of the global majors, they said that we want to figure out what will be the contours of premium consumer segment in terms of aesthetics. What will they like and what will they not like? So can this be figured out? And for doing this, there's an underlying method. There's a method to doing this kind of study. It's not just market research where you ask questions to the consumers and they tell you something. This is the kind of thing we want. So how is this given a shape? How people who are working on new ideas, how do they get a conviction on whether the idea is fit for the market? Are they on the right journey or not? Stuff like this. And in case the product is already launched, whether the users, there is a retention of the users, how can the journey be enhanced, can the experience be enhanced. So the method which is used for this, design thinking, is the underlying core. So at this point, this is a usual journey whenever as a startup founders, we have an idea and we want to check out whether, as a startup founder, everyone is very convinced that this idea will work. You check with 4 friends and you check with an investor and they all say, great, it's going to work. But does it really work? Because the statistics say that 42% startups fail not because they didn't have money or they didn't have right partners, or there was the issue of some structural issue. The 42% startups fail because the idea itself was not right for the market that time. So with that issue, how do we solve that issue of conviction? How do you validate that am I going on the right direction? Who's going to say that? Is investor going to say that? Or we have to figure this out ourselves? Or is the conviction within a founder enough? Is there a cheaper way of doing it? Oh, that's what I am going to talk about today. And I want to ask now questions to you guys. If you have any idea of how is it done, or if you have heard about design thinking any which way, and what's your perception? So let's have a dialogue before, and what kind of questions you would like to be answered with this background of mine. Then we can see which way to take for the rest of the presentation.
Guys, you can unmute and talk. Otherwise, you can also put it in the chat box. So, sir, what I think, is I think this is a very important business validation, and what primarily comes to my mind is that it could be some sort of questionnaire-based survey.
What based survey? Sorry, you said something, Ashish. What based survey?
Yes, I said that the question was that how this can be done, right? Idea validation.
Yeah. So, how do you get conviction in your idea, and do you know about design thinking? These are 2 questions I'm asking.
Yes. So yeah, many of us get many ideas.
customer or the potential person, would you like this idea? And the person says yes. So will he really buy that?
Sir, I feel like it's not about always about liking the idea, but also like what my product or service solving the customer's problem. Like if there is some pain point in the life of the customers, then our product or service should solve it, and then only the customer is going to buy or take our service.
Correct. But कई बार ऐसा होता है, maybe I can mix Hindi and English both. Is everyone comfortable with the mix, or I stick to English? Okay, so what happens normally is that not every time the customer is able to respond to the question that whether they like the idea, because the idea is so new to them, or sometimes they don't even understand the entire proposition. I remember one of the research we were doing where in the initial days of LCD TV when it had just come, and we asked the customer, would you use this TV? And the customer, some of the Gujarati customer, we were in Gujarat and we were asking this question, would you use this? Would you buy this? Customer says, no, it is such a big glass product hanging on the wall. What if it falls? We are not going to use it. We'll see if the neighbor uses it and it doesn't fall for a few years, then we'll buy it. What do you do when such kind of answers come? How do you get a conviction that the product will work? Because people are not familiar with the new experience. And today, the way technology is changing, many people, for example, the autonomous car. We have no idea how this car, new animal called autonomous car, is going to behave. Asking customer, will you use it? He'll say, yeah. Maybe casually, person may say, yeah, I'll use it. But we'll have no clue of what it means to use it. How do you derive some conviction in such cases? So my first question. Yeah, sorry, please go ahead.
In the chat box, Aman says that we could try putting user at the center of the solution.
Okay. Somebody has studied design thinking, putting user at the center of the solution. So what does it mean? Does anybody know about it? How does it work, putting user in the center of the solution? That's exactly I'm going to talk about how it's done. But maybe if you have one or two trigger sentences, it'll be good to catch where we can catch on to, where we can have a slightly longer conversation.
Man, maybe you can unmute and elaborate.
So I was answering to what I think design thinking means. So if there's a problem, if the problem that we are solving it from the user's point of view rather than thinking about the product features and the capabilities that the product can have. Instead of that, we should think in terms of what are the pain points that the user is facing and how we can address that.
So this has been the premise of design thinking. What you said is true, Aman. What happens normally is that as techie guys, we get too fascinated with the armory we have of features, of software, of technology. And then we say, okay, I know your problem and I understand your problem. And I'm going to solve this at half the price. And I know that you're going to buy this. And does it work in real life like this? And it doesn't. And that's where we need to go ground up in building things. And why we need to do and how we need to do is what is design thinking. So let me show you one example of what happened, and then maybe I'll come back to this. So this is one example. We had long time back, we had worked on this one. Right now, I'm not making it a full presentation. Maybe we'll pick up as the conversation progresses. It will remain interactive. So this was a refrigerator example. Many years back, this is a Godrej Chotu Cool. Some of you may have heard about it. A Chotu Cool refrigerator. Godrej makes it and it can be purchased online or through post office, even in rural India at a low price point. Right now it shows 7,000 rupees. Earlier it was 4,000 rupees. And once you keep vegetables, etc., in this, it can remain cool for 12 hours. Uses the Peltier effect. So all technology patent purchased through a San Francisco-based startup, and Godrej started making this refrigerator. Now, guess what? It was meant for poor people. It should have been raging success against a 8,000 rupee, 10,000 rupee regular refrigerator, 165 liter. You can see the size reference. It should have been a raging success. But I don't know if any of you ever know that this product exists, which means it's not a success. Now, that time, one Korean company came to us, and you can very well imagine which Korean company would come to us, one of the twos or threes. And they said, oh guys, Godrej is doing this. We also want to launch this product. We want to make it a emerging market success. So we know the price point, 4,000 rupees. We know the technology, this refined Peltier effect, whatever. And we can make it even better. We can get the temperature drop even better within the given voltage and the current supply what India situation has. So all you guys do is just design it. So we said, okay, there is a method called design thinking. We are design thinking. You're coming to us because of that. And which says that let's try to figure out what consumer really needs. We know that poor people want to have a refrigerator. That's their dream. But what is that they want? Is that the price point is such a killer price point that everyone will jump at it? Or there is something more to it? So we did this research in Indonesia and India, 2 places. And this is called, we use a design research, or empathic research is a method. It's a qualitative research method where you don't ask questions directly to the consumer. You can watch them, you can ask, you can study their lifestyle, you can study what they eat, how they consume things. For example, in Indonesia, they eat a lot of fish. And the poor households, like the slums, they would buy fish in the evening and the morning, and then the fish has to be finished by evening, otherwise it'll have stink. Or on a day-to-day basis, they run households. Or for example, ice cream they buy, they'll keep it they can't keep it, so they have to finish it the same day. That's why they sometimes need a refrigerator. And they buy the ice from a neighbor in a poor households. In fact, one of the research, these guys said that if you have a refrigerator, I can make money by selling the ice to the neighbor. So we said, let's try to figure out what they need. And one of the method of this study is very interesting one called co-creation, where you say, let's make the user the designer of the product. So we did this co-creation workshop in Indonesia and India. So we said, we are making this refrigerator for these poor people. We know the price point, 4,000 rupees. So marketing part, messaging part is fixed, and we know the technology, but let's see what actually people need. So you see this picture on the left, my colleague is there on the left, and there are 2 women. This is in Chennai. So we call them in a hotel. These people live in the slums. They work as maid or something like that for households. And we told them that, why don't you draw on this wall? We gave them these stickers. Draw a refrigerator you want, you would ideally like to have, and the kind of stuff you would like to store. We gave them the stickers and we gave them this black tape to draw it out. And guess what? Do you see some anomaly here? What these poor households, they are probably wives of some auto drivers and slum guys. Do you see something odd about this, what they've drawn on the wall? Anybody?
It is not a small refrigerator.
Exactly. You can see this, probably they drew a 7-footer refrigerator, taller than them. They took a stool and then drew it. There were 3 groups and all of them drew large refrigerators. And we were frustrated because we actually thought that they will draw, looking at their homes, they would draw a small refrigerator. We repeated this exercise in Indonesia. And guess what? Exactly similar experience. There also people draw large refrigerators. Now, why is this happening? Market research, what the company did, positioning, technology, everything is right. Why is the consumer looking at large refrigerator, which probably they can't even afford? They can't even keep this there in their homes. What does it tell us for the product construct?
So I think people also attach this value to the products that they buy for a good amount of money. That it should have a distinctive value that it gives them in comparison to, say, their neighbor. It should be something that actually also appears to be expensive.
Absolutely. What's your name?
Sir Puneet.
Okay, this is Puneet. So Puneet, this is bang on. So the refrigerator is an aspirational product for this segment. It is a thing to be proud of as an important buy of the house, like Mercedes standing in my garage, like this. So, and these people all work. They work as maids and they get influenced by the homes they work in or the offices they work in, where they have large refrigerator, 2 double door ones. So the dreams they are carrying is of a large refrigerator. And when they have to spend money and get it, they don't want to buy something like looking like a dabba. So it's an anti-image of what they are carrying in their head. So this is nowhere looks like aspirational product. It's a very functional product, engineering marvel, but it doesn't meet the consumer need. And this can't be articulated in words when you ask them. That is why these are called projective techniques. These are qualitative methods which design thinking uses. And and special word has come in called empathy. That can you empathize with the user, get into their shoes and understand that what is that real need they have. And that's where design thinking came in picture. So what has happened is, now let me get back to the earlier, usually founder has an idea, you build a product and find a customer. That's the process we all know about. This is the typical craft society. I'm a great thinker. I'll make a product for you. I'll make a shoe for you. And you come and buy because I'm unique. But later on, when more people came into the game, then you need to quickly prototype your idea and then refine it and then launch. You have an idea, you make MVPs and then launch. But what the current method, this was a lean, those of you who are familiar with the lean processes or lean thinking, this is what came in. But what the design thinking is now the current way of doing things, where even if you have an idea and you are damn convinced about it, you need to go a deep dive into the user's world. And we are not using consumer world, by the way. We are using the word user. And user is anybody, is very important thing. User is anybody who comes in touch with your product. Suppose I am making, let's say, a pen. Not the child is not the only user. If the thele wala guy who sells the pen is also my user, the dealer is also my user. So I have actually user is a composite word. It's a composite word of many people, many stakeholders. The management is also a user. So you have to empathize with the users, figure out who the user is, real user is, what is their need, and then build MVP. And then test it out, iterate for a while, and then probably you can go for a launch. So this is an important shift design thinking is brought in terms of the word called empathy has been attached. And those of you not familiar with this is Stanford has been peddling this model of design thinking, which they say that it's a 5-stage process. Never works like a formula like this, but it's just good to know that there is something, and there's no sequence or color doesn't have any meaning, or there's this particular way of writing also doesn't have any meaning, as long as you remember that this is a sequence of things. So important thing is idea, prototype, test, everyone knows. As you're engineering graduates, you're in the science stream, you're going to be graduate very soon. You know that दिमाग में idea है तो idea के बाद में prototype बनाना होगा, test करना होगा. That much you know. What is important to understand is the first 2 parts. That even before that happens, you need to empathize with the consumer or user. Even after you are dead sure that this is going to work, because in the world the consumer mental models are shifting very, very soon, very, very quickly. What they perceive of things, whether it's a medical device versus or it is an investment product you are making, or for example, just that we were consulting a fintech company who wanted to launch a retirement advisory in India, and they were looking at how women can be involved in the investment process. We were surprised to find some housewives taking to day trading. You know, for what? Just to get a thrill. They said that this gives us independence. All other decisions men folk take it at home. We are busy full day taking care of home. This is the decision. I am taking it and I am earning at the end of the day. Even if I earn 100 rupees, it's a great deliverance for me. Now, this is a complete new Pandora box. And that's where we call such people, such user. Even if you come across, you speak to 10 people and one person says something like this, you imagine that 10% new consumers are being born who are housewives, and they want to get the deliverance through financial. It's a financial deliverance for them. In fact, a bigger social change is happening. So this is where great empathy unlocks many other doors, and that's where second step you define the who is the user and what is their problem or what is the current issue you are going to solve. Then you start ideation. Okay, this is the problem, then I am going to solve this. So at define stage, you can define the problem. Okay, how can we help these housewives get a sense of independence and deliverance using then you can do that. So far, any questions, guys?
Sir, getting such kinds of insights would require some different techniques like questionnaires or like such kind of insights we cannot get from questionnaire or from general speaking with the consumers, right? So what approaches should we do to follow to get such insights?
Correct. So for this, there is a special methods design thinking has for doing qualitative research. It is the methods which are called empathic research method or design research method. If you search on internet, you will find a whole lot of design research methods, which are qualitative methods where you don't have to ask in the usual way of questioning. So these have come from sociology and anthropology. Some methods have come in long back when you study tribes, that how are their social methods and how their society is organized. There were two ways of doing it. Either you go and live with the tribes, or you watch them from a distance. Like in Andaman Nicobar, we go and watch them from a distance. We don't become one of them. And study how their social patterns, education, marriage, relationships take place. So design thinking has adopted some method like this. And for example, one of the method is called open-ended discussion. Now, open-ended discussion is you go and speak to the consumer or user, but talk to him like a friend, as if you are chatting over a chai. So, but definitely you have some guideline that these areas to be touched upon, but you don't ask him directly the question, okay, so what kind of refrigerator do you want? You would rather say, okay, what is your for example, how is your typical evening schedule? So you figure out that how is the eating pattern, lifestyle preferences take shape, when does he take out stuff from refrigerator, not stuff like this. And then you conclude certain things about the user. Okay, he's a techie guy, or he's a super health aware guy, so his needs are different. So can I give him a different kind of refrigerator? And same is with the digital product. So there are other method called, for example, there are other method called card sorting. So let me take you through one such journey, one such example, which we did. It'll be of interest and what kind of things we take place. So this was a client came to us and said, we want to launch a e-commerce based digital advisory for farmers. Knowing that 600,000 villages and the kind of farmers, 60% of our population is in the rural India right now still. But the GDP contribution of agriculture is still minimal. Large part is still manufacturing and services. Nevertheless, so right now a lot of work is happening in agriculture in terms of bringing a techno touch to agriculture. It's a big revolution right now going on behind those of you who are interested in agri part. I mean, we have come in touch with a lot of foreign companies and Indian startups also working in this area. So this company wanted to launch a digital advisory, but they didn't know whether if you launch some service like this of digital advisory where we can tell you आपके खेत में कौन सा fertilizer चाहिए, what is the NPK value, nitrogen value in the soil, how much is the moisture. There are equipment right now available in the world which are predicting even localized weather forecasting they can do. But how do you even study this? You ask a farmer बोलेगा वो government gives us free of cost. Krishi Vigyan Kendra gives us free of cost. Who's going to buy such advisory for you? Is there a need for it? Or are there, or Indian farmers have got used to everything free? So such kind of questions were there. So what do you do? So you use design thinking methods for this kind of conviction. How to build a scalable digital platform where farmers can be on it. And so what we do is we use something called cue cards for open-ended discussion. We go and meet the farmers and we show them some pictures and we get chit-chatting with them and see how they react to those pictures. For example, we show them picture like what you see on the left in the phase 1. Showed them some drone picture. Now, first of all, we want to see the farmer whether they understand what the hell is this. Is it a drone? Is it something they know about at all? This exists or not? Or we showed them weather station, which is the second picture. We showed them some apps. To our surprise, some of the forward-looking farmers who they already knew, not only knew that this was a drone, but they also knew what the drone can be used for. For example, spraying pesticide or survey, the area mapping, etc. So we were pretty surprised. Now we did it. Now this doesn't need to be done on a pan-India basis. Now we'll come to the next question. How do you figure out how many people to talk to? So we did a small test group, and we were impressed at the way they reacted to these. That at least they were aware that this is called a weather station. And once you get talking to them, then you realize that they are also telling you how to sell this stuff to them. One of them said that if you are thinking of selling it, sir, आप इसको हमको अकेले को मत बेचो. आप एक group बनाओ, गांव में आके एक group बनाओ, and then sell it to us. Sell it to a community. We can use it, rotate it around ours. So you see, these users are coming up with some suggestion. So what we did was, in the second round, we went with something. Second part was a complete user journey mapping, farm cycle mapping. So we figured out, we again carried some pictures, but it was across the farm cycles. How do you use the equipment or phones or any technical, you can say, aid? How do you use through your farm cycle? And we showed them cards. Now listen to this. It's very interesting. What is the harm if you can just talk to them and not show them cards? What difference does a card bring to the picture? Showing them a card or a picture versus just talking to them on face. Anybody can have any cue what this might do different. What change will it bring? sorry, there's an electricity cut and I don't have a UPS at home because I've just shifted. I'm at home right now. So you can only see an emergency lamp on my face. That's about it. What does the card do differently than just asking them a question? Any cues?
It helps them in visualizing how the solution might be.
So we are not even given a solution. We are just showing them some bits and pieces of information. So what the card does is, psychologically, it just removes the threat of a stranger, which is an important threat. When you, as an outsider, go and speak to a consumer, eyes to eyes contact is always an animal threat. This is psychology. This is a natural instinct. So people are always restrained when you ask them on face, what do you want? Or what is your reaction? Versus when you show a card, he's slightly more at composure because his eyesight is focused on the card. And he can refer to this, he can pick it up, other senses are coming in picture, touch, and he can take off the eyes from your face onto the card. It helps making the conversation become natural. That's all it does. And he can refer to the card and the concept and go on for it. So in second phase, we did this. In third phase of research, basically, and now when we are talking of phases, imagine that we are talking to 10 farmers in Maharashtra, then we went and met 10 farmers in MP. In third phase, now this time we were slightly more clearer about what people are looking at, what kind of intervention they want. We made a small, low fidelity prototype of the solution and carried a concept card like this. I mean, you can see the third phase or the image number 3, where how on each phase this app which we were making, how the service will work. So it had just wireframe diagrams on this. In third phase, so maybe it was probably 1 month down the line when we started the project, we are actually showing them some solution. And in the fourth phase, we were showing them slightly more refined, low fidelity prototype of the complete composite solution. So it was little sprints which were taking place of trying to understand the farmers' needs and how the entire crop cycle can be enabled by digital advisory. So you can see some 40-50 interaction you would have done, not with just the farmers, but also with the stakeholders like cold chain owners, seed traders, some scientists, agriculture scientists. So these are become important stakeholders in the game, and everyone is a user. And we need to check with them how they work. And you can see now also one picture where we figured out that 3 features which will be of most important to the farmer. So we made these, you can say, rupee coins. You can see rupee symbol, and we say, okay, we have this app or this service which is consisting of like 15 parts, from your seeding to the crop harvesting and selling in the market. We'll help you with market discovery, price discovery, everything. A lot of jhamela which you're seeing right now going on in the Indian politics. A large part of it was addressed here, and we knew why mandis don't work in India, but that's a separate topic. But anyways, so you see this rupee symbol. This is where we said, can you put this symbol on the card where you think you are ready to pay money for this kind of information? So you see on the left, there are the red indicators where different farmers have agreed that this stage they are ready to pay money in their crop cycle. So this kind of research becomes very interactive and very evidential, because now if I met 30 farmers across country, I have these 30 photographs which have been result of the interaction, and they've snap taken and voice recorded, and farmer is saying, "Main is pe paisa dunga aapko." And then you can go and iterate this cycle slightly more. So you see this is going in an iteration mode. It is going into an immersive mode, empathic mode. And that's where then you figure out a complete new service for them. And you are able to predict a complete new business model. The outcome was finally figured out new business model for this company, and with evidences. Company says, tell us why farmer in India will pay money for such a service. And there are evidences like this. You can see this is a way of that we already knew. They were already subscribing to some technical journal, some newspapers, etc., or some local groups. In fact, one of the farmers, we realized, these are called early evidences. One farmers group in MP had a WhatsApp group for cultivation of haldi, the turmeric, and how the turmeric can be turned into curcumin for cosmetic purposes and sold for a higher margin. They had a WhatsApp group for exchanging information. These evidences are clinching evidences that there is an understated need of better technology and better information sharing. And then you can mark it out and construct a complete new business model around it. So in fact, one of the business model proposition in this thing was, farmer said, selling and buying great, help me plan my agriculture right at the beginning when I'm buying seed. 4 acre ke khet mein, how much should I put, what kind of seed? Can somebody advise me on this? If you can advise me on this, I'm ready to pay money. That became one of the USP of this app. We tested it out, and first 6 months of pilot, 20% straight away farmers saw an increase in that produce in the pilot. So this is a kind of design thinking method used, qualitative research method used with the whole idea of, this is what you call you empathize deeply, but then there are methods to do it. You define what are the real problems in the entire crop cycle or entire usage journey, and then you ideate how many ways can you solve it, make prototype for each one of them, and then iterate rapidly till you reach an MVP. So this is a design thinking method for solving, for getting conviction. And the best part is that you get conviction, very, very evidential conviction, which you can sell to your investor. You have this huge then repertoire of data, which is not just recording of a farmer saying it, but also a picture, visual, cue card, conversations, which you have, which you can present to an investor or your colleagues. Forget about investor. Sometimes even to convince your other partner is a headache, because other partner is not involved in the research. You are involved in the research. Now, how do you convince the other partner that this was done? So this kind of method also comes handy in convincing the rest of the team members. So yeah, if you have any questions so far.
Yeah, sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Sir, I agree with your approach that we can ask directly as well as indirectly the customers what are their needs. But many a times it might happen that customers themselves don't know their needs. Like there is a classic example of Henry Ford's statement that if you would have asked people what they wanted, then they would have said that they wanted faster horses. So how do we tackle the situations where customers themselves don't know what they need?
This design thinking or design research methods are exactly meant for them, those kind of situations where customers are not able to articulate. They can only give you cues. They can only throw, once you give a cue, they'll give you a counter cue. So if you see in this agriculture research, the whole discovery that farm planning is a bigger activity or more paying activity than let's say e-commerce online. That was a discovery we made because we were showing them these cues. And this was because one farmer, he said, because he had some accounts background, and he said, can you help me doing this? आप मेरे को इतना मदद करो कि मैं 4 लाख रुपए डालने हैं फार्म में, तो कैसे डालूं, किधर डालूं? One person saying it, we picked up that cue and then made our prototype and then validated through the rest of the people. So that's a very interesting thing. A concept called extreme user or advanced user comes in picture. That probably will answer your question, that not everyone will say, I need this, but the advanced user will have some cues for it. So advanced user is somebody who is slightly ahead of the curve. He's tested few things out, and we all know amongst us also there'll be some people who are slightly ahead of using certain kind of products. Let's say I want to buy a new cycle. Now there'll be one guy who has tested 3 or 4 different cycles, who is also a motorcycle rider, who has traveled abroad from several times. He knows certain brands. He's an extreme user, advanced user. This guy's opinions will be of immense importance to me, and I can take cues from it to build my prototype and then test with the rest of the user. This is very different from market research, because market research mein you've been told that just find the majority and go with them. 10 में से कितने users ने हाँ बोला for this product, go with the majority. And that's where design thinking comes in handy and says, no, even if one guy is speaking, which looks like a trigger, which is like a catalyst, catch him, build on that idea, but then make prototype and test it. Yeah? So that comes handy.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
Is there a trade-off between scalability and understanding the user's problem very well? Scalability part comes at the time of assessing the ideas. So design thinking says that don't assess the idea till you have understood the user's complete needs. And that's where you see ideation is a step number 3. An assessment may come at the 6th stage probably. First, you need to understand very quickly, deeply what the user's problem is. Once you understood that well, then you ideate. And after the ideation, you choose the idea which is really scalable, viable, and feasible, all 3. So normally they use this triad called viability, feasibility, and desirability, in case those of you have heard about this triad. That's the time to check on the scalability, whether this idea should be shot down or this idea should be picked up. Yeah? So there will be trade-off, and that time design thinking says stick to the user's need. Put this as a core. Because even if the idea, if it is not aligned, if your direction you're going itself is not aligned, what is the point? Why was Nano lost? Nano was lost, the direction you're going itself was not aligned. What is the point of having a scalability? I mean, scalability you count and you can multiply a number of poor people multiplied by so many stuff. And I'll give you an example. One company came to us, one silicon panel manufacturing company, global giant. They calculated this. Look at this, very interesting. They say so many poor people in India who are like living on fringes. What if we give them 5 vodka panel which they can assemble at home, and their lives will be lit up, their children can study, and blah blah blah, multiplied by so many millions in the world, so many $1 billion opportunity. And they say we'll make this glue and chemical, everything, we'll give it to a poor household, they'll make their silicon panel and their house will be lit. Now let me show you a picture where the extreme user scenario comes in picture, and that can open up a lot of questions. And this picture you see here is a picture from extreme user case. We went to something called Brahmasagar Island, Ganga Sagar Island near Brahmaputra in Bengal, in the basically estuary of Ganges, wherever it meets the sea. So it's an island, so there's no electricity. So what do people do? Will such a 5-watt thing make difference to their lives? We saw this guy watching TV, connecting this huge battery bank and watching TV programs. And we said, why? I mean, one room is given to these batteries and TV. He said, this is my family's ultimate pleasure this is what they look forward to. This is what I aspire, I work for. There must be some small village doing some minimal work somewhere. So this kind of images, this kind of interactions can trigger that finally the primary need of the human being is not just one 5 watt light. primary need becomes 45 watt connection minimum, which can give them at least entertainment options of watching a TV. So the pointer shifted from 5 watt to 45 watt. So this kind of trade-off definitely happens, that you need to, then you look at it. And sorry, the scalability part was taken care, but the problem was, next problem which came, that problem was not assembling a silicon panel, but the battery, which is the crux of the issue, which is to be, some people told us that the problem is not silicon panel. What if when we go to the to farms to work, somebody flicks our battery, somebody steals our battery, and that there have been some cases, some people who installed those batteries got stolen. On the highway, sometimes you see solar lights don't work because the batteries have been stolen. So the entire proposition of 5 watt into so many millions fell to the ground because the entire system was not thought through. The weak link is the battery, not the silicon panel. Entire project was scratched actually. So this kind of trade-off will remain, definitely. But you have to definitely point to the user's needs first, not towards a technology solution there. So we are already crossing time. Maybe I can take 1 or 2 questions more, and otherwise I have some summary slides which basically say how you go about it. But maybe you can have a question. I can take it.
Oh, sir, I have a more logistical question than a question on the process. So why do farmers talk to you when you go to them? What do they get by talking to you?
Oh, those are multiple issues, multiple things, not just farmers. Suppose any other research we do. So there are multiple ways. Some, in the farmer's case, sometimes they just like to talk to you because you're coming from a different area. You have India has a culture of welcoming strangers or a guest at home. Remote areas where people feel like talking to you anyways, so they don't mind. In fact, they offer you food, vagara, all that. That's besides the point. In urban situation, you pay them for talking to you.
Okay.
So there are organized agencies which can arrange specific criteria people. For example, when we work with Google, we do, let's say they work with the next billion users right now. People at the fringes who have low capacity phones and first timers on internet. We are studying a lot of them. So we actually go with a specific criteria. A person who has a 1 GB RAM phone with just switched on to internet, purchased phone just last month, stuff like that. And we have to find them and then interview.
Okay.
Pay them money. But sometimes without paying money also works. Sometimes you have to work with a rich man, for example. A guy already has a Mercedes park, but you need to do a luxury product research. That time, just a request is enough. He doesn't care for your few thousand rupees.
Okay.
Anything else?
If you don't have more questions, we can get the summary slides.
Okay, so maybe then I'll just put some last bits logistical question as you were asking. So when we research, first of all, don't just research just the user. Sometimes we also work. We in fact, instead of just say consumer, first of all we say user, and within user also we have these 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different segments to research. You work at you research the user, non-user, guy who's never going to use your product because he doesn't like it. We also interview him. Intender, who plans to purchase it. Extreme user, who has already done multiple rounds of such products usage. Influencer is also very important sometimes. Guys who are, it could be social media influencer, the influencer of that field sometimes. And stakeholders, the company management. All these people you need to speak to, not just the consumer. The biggest mistake we do is we just talk to the consumer. That's one thing. Second important thing, which nobody asked, that how many people to speak to. So now we are not working with this quantitative method of at least talk to 3,000 people, 5,000 people. Those are quantitative research methods. They come after you have done initial these kind of qualitative dipsticks. And as a statistical heuristic already established, if the group is homogeneous, just 5 users are enough to give you 80% of insights. This is a very important part if you are planning to become an entrepreneur or ever get into this kind of research for your own product. If suppose you're targeting a product as at, let's say, engineering students, suppose. Now, how many users you need to speak to figure out your products? And the answer could be for 50, 100, and there's never enough. Investor can question even 100 is not enough, 200 is not enough. Statistics says that if it is about engineering students in India, or let's say just IIT, so it's pretty homogeneous group. Speak to 5 people and you will be 80% you'll be there. You can say, okay, I'll talk to 5 boys and 5 girls. Definitely, you can speak to, this is a non-homogeneous group because boys and girls are different ways of thinking. So, okay, great. 5 and 5 each, 10 is enough. Yeah. So that way, biggest studies we have done, let's say for Maruti's Brezza car, which came out, was part of our research. It was a runaway success when it came. Not more than 120 people across India we researched. So this is an advantage of doing this kind of research, which is very, very pinpointed, deep end. Each interview may take 2 hours sometimes, kind of thing. And you go in rapid sprints. You make a quick prototype. I'm not talking of a quick even a paper sketch sometimes is good enough. And go into sprints. So this quick prototypes also work as a tool for empathy. You can do better research with a prototype in hand. That's the spirit of design thinking. Use prototype very, very rapidly and iterate them over. Yeah. So this is about it. Hope it was useful. If you have any questions, mail it to me. I can try to answer them. manoj@turinlabs.com.
Yes, sure, sir. We'll share your contact details. And thanks, sir. It was a very interesting session and a very important step in designing a product, like a product or service, whatever it is. And not many people think about it. So yes, I'm sure it is going to be very useful for everyone. Thanks for being with us and sharing your.
All right. Thank you, guys. All the best.
Knowledge with us.
Millionaires soon. Thank you.